Hello children. So today in science we are going to start a new chapter from semester 2 book. So that is chapter number 1, shadows and eclipses. So before moving on to the shadows and eclipses, first let us know what produces the shadows and eclipse. The main reason for a shadow to occur is the light. And we all know, children, right, that whenever you want to see any object, you require presence of light. Yes, in dark you can't see any object clearly. So there should be always presence of light in order to view the objects. Now, you have seen, children, that many objects that emits light, correct? Emits means give out the light, such as sun, stars. There are natural objects as well as there are artificial also, that is man-made also. So earlier days we never had this tube light, bulbs and all before its invention. But now, because of all this facilities, electricity and all, what we are having, whenever we want, we can switch on the light. But earlier days, we used to depend only upon the sun, the stars, the moon, right? Even fire. Fire also, when it burns, what does it give? It gives out light to us. So, these things which gives out the light to us are called as luminous object. What are they called as? Luminous object. Okay, and those things which do not give out light, which do not give out light are called as non-luminous object. Just you have to add NON for this, non-luminous object. So we learn now luminous and non-luminous. So what are luminous, children? Those objects which glow or which emit light are called as luminous object. Here in your textbook they have given few examples. See, electric bulb, then fire, torch, all these they give out light, so they are called as luminous object. While wood, leaf, stone, rock, all those they won't give out light, correct? So they are called as non-luminous object. Now the next point what we are going to study is about the reflection. So now as you studied luminous and non-luminous, there are few things, the non-luminous things, what they do. When can we see this? Now seeing a sun directly, it hurts. We can't open our eyes completely. Even the torch, very bright light, we can't see, correct? But the opaque, the non-luminous object, that is the stone, rocks, mountain, all those things we can see clearly, isn't it? So how are we able to see them exactly? When light source, okay, when light from, for example, light from the sun, it falls onto this surface of the non-luminous objects, the light has a property to bounce back. What happens? The light has a property to bounce back, and that bouncing of light is called as reflection. Okay, so when light falls on, say for example this book, when light falls on this books, it strikes on this books and it bounces back, and that is the reason we are able to see this book clearly. Okay, now see, it's written here, the bouncing of light is called as reflection. What is it called? Reflection. Now there are two types. I won't say two types, on two surfaces. Let us see what happens to the reflection of light on a smooth surface and on a rough surface. So when light strikes, look here children, this is a rough surface what they have shown here, that is uneven surface. So this is red ray is the light source. When this light falls on this uneven surface, what happens? It bounces back. The light bounces back in all the possible directions. The green one are reflected light rays. Okay, and that is the reason it is all scattered, and that is why we can see the object clearly. Here the light is falling on a smooth surface. So what happens? They have placed a torchlight here, so and a smooth surface. Okay, so maybe a glass. So when the light is falling on this glass, okay, it will bounce back. Yes, certainly it will bounce back, but it bounces back in one particular direction. It is not diffused, it is not scattered, it is going in one particular direction, and that is the reason the smooth surfaces the smooth surfaces will look more shiny. When you try to put torchlight or put any kind of light to the mirror, what happens? It will reflect back and you may feel very shiny and you will close your eyes, right? It will shine. Correct. Mirrors, polished metal and smooth surfaces. All the smooth surfaces it will shine. Even sometimes you see the board also shines, ma'am. Correct? When the light it falls in such an angle that it reflects back in a same direction, then it starts then it starts shining. Yes. And children, also one more thing you have to keep in mind, that the white surfaces, white objects, they will reflect more than the darker one. That is why in summers, what do we suggest? Wear light colored clothes, so that the sun's heat, the light it will reflect back. Okay, it will reflect back, it won't absorb. While the darker colors or the darker object, they absorb more light. That means black color, it absorbs the most of the light than white. Okay. Now coming to the next topic, that is how does light travel? So children, there are few properties about the light. There are few properties, or you can say few characteristics about the light which we need to know. So the most thing is light travels in straight line. Light travels in straight line. Light travels in straight line called ray. That is why we call them as ray, because it travels in a straight line. And here also when you are drawing, it should be a straight line. Okay. Then the next point is, children, which is the fastest thing on earth? Not animal, I'm asking. Yes, light is the fastest thing on earth. And that is why during the thunderstorms, what you see first? You see first the lightning. Correct? And then after few seconds, you hear the thunder sound, because light travels faster than sound. So, fastest. So, light is the fastest thing on earth. Okay, in the universe. Now, what is the speed of light? It is 3 lakh kilometer per second. The speed of light is 3 lakh kilometer per second. Okay. Now there is one more characteristics of a light. That is, it can travel through vacuum. It can travel through vacuum. Now you will be wondering, what is vacuum? So vacuum is a place where there is no air. Vacuum is a place where there is no air. There is not even a small presence of air. So in that situation also the light can travel. But for the sound, whatever I am speaking, you can hear it only because there is air around me. Okay. But if there is no air, if I am speaking if the sound is trying to travel in vacuum, no, it can't happen. It is not possible. Sound, you can't hear sound in vacuum place. Okay, but light can travel through vacuum also. So these are the properties or characteristics of light. So along with this, the light has a characteristics of bouncing back or causing reflection also. Okay, keep that in mind. So light travels in straight line called rays. It is the fastest thing on the universe. The speed of the light is 3 lakh kilometer per second. And it also travels in vacuum. Now, moving on to the next topic, that is passage of light through objects. Now, previously what we learned? Yes, that there are luminous and non-luminous objects. So when light falls on a non-luminous object like a book or a stone, whatever non-luminous bodies, we can see the object clearly. We are able to see them clearly through through what? Because of reflection of the light, because of bouncing of the light. Yes. Now there are few more objects like glass or a mirror or a plastic objects, thin plastic sheets. What happens to the light when it falls on these objects? Let us study here. Okay, so moving on to the topic, passage of light through objects. So we classify, there are 3 kinds of object depending how the light will pass through them. Depending on how the light will pass through them. So the first object is opaque. Okay. So what are opaque objects? Things through which light cannot pass. So objects or any material through which light cannot pass through them. Such objects are called as opaque objects. Okay, light cannot enter into them, cannot pass through them. It will just reflect back from their surface. And okay, so the examples for opaque substance are your stone, wood, okay, all these are opaque. Metals, the solid substances, all these solid substances are the opaque substance. Now coming to the next one, that is transparent. Transparent substance. So what are transparent objects? So here, these transparent, the objects which will allow only little small amount of light to pass through them. Okay, such objects are called as transparent objects. The objects which will allow only little amount of light to pass through them are called as transparent objects. like your glass, water, okay, all these are transparent object. Completely, you would sometimes say it is completely transparent. That means you can see through it. Sorry, let me correct myself. Transparent objects are those objects which will allow the light to pass through them completely. Earlier I said little amount of light. No, not little amount of light, but completely it will allow the light to pass through it. And that is why sometimes you say, I can see through this, correct? Any plastic sheet if you hold, you can see completely whatever is there the other side. That means it is transparent in nature. Okay, so examples are your water, clear water, then glass and some thin plastics. Now the next one is translucent. So these objects, they allow only little amount of light to pass through them. They allow only little amount of light to pass through them. Such objects are called as translucent. Now, the examples for these are some dark colored glass or plastics. Okay, so what happens? Thin paper. If you take a thin sheet of paper, if you hold it against the light, okay, if you hold it against the light, or you can see little bit of this, you can just have an idea, okay, what the object can be the other side. You can't see the object clearly because it allows only little amount of light to pass through it. Okay, so here in your textbook they have clearly shown you the example of that. The white color is a transparent, the green colored glass is a colored glass, it is translucent in nature, while this one, the blue glass, is opaque in nature. Okay. Now children, you learned that light travels in straight line, correct? And when an object, it does not allow the light to pass through them, such objects are called as opaque objects. They stop the light there itself. They don't allow the light to enter into them, correct? So such objects are called as opaque objects. So what happens when the light, it falls on the opaque object? Yes, obviously you can see that object. Also, there is a dark area which will be formed just behind that object. That dark area is nothing but the shadow of the object. Okay, the dark area formed behind the opaque object when a light falls on it is called as a shadow of that object. So in your whenever the power goes off, when you light a candle, what you do at home? Yes, you will make some shapes with your hand or your body or any of the objects on the wall, and you will try to cast a shadow on the wall, correct? Yes, the same thing here. When for the formation of the shadow, we require three things. These three things are must for a formation of shadow. That is an opaque object, light source, as well as a surface on which the shadow has to be formed. Okay, keep this in mind, children. The three things required for the formation of shadow are a light source, an opaque object, and a surface where the shadow has to be formed. Now, there are two types of shadows what you will be studying. These many days you weren't aware of that, correct? So now let us study what are these two types of shadow. See, in your textbook, they have clearly shown a picture over here. This is nothing but a shadow of a man playing a drum. Okay, so the dark center, the black here, the dark, very dark region is called as the umbra. What is it called? Umbra. Okay, Umbra, umbra. While you can see there's one more light, very faint shadow behind it, correct? This is nothing but the penumbra. What is it called? Penumbra. So what is an umbra? An area of complete darkness at the center is known as the umbra. The area of complete darkness at the center is known as the umbra. Okay, and this umbra is formed when the region receives no light at all. Okay, there is no light. That time the umbra is formed when the light is trying to pass through an opaque object. Okay, what happens if this is an opaque object and there is a light source over here? Okay, the rays are falling all over here, the whole book. Also few rays, they travel here to the edges or to the surface, the top part or the side part or the bottom part. There are few rays which are passing here. What happens? The rays which will pass through, which will fall onto this surface, the book, umbra will be seen back. That means no light, there is no light passing here. Okay, so it will be completely dark, while the light which will pass through this place, okay, the corners, a faint shadow will be seen. That is penumbra. Okay, area of partial darkness at the edges is known as penumbra. Penumbra receives only some light from the source. Okay, so a large source of light. What happens when it is a large source like a sun? The source of light is sun. Umbra as well as penumbra will be formed, while a small source, for example a torch light, it will show only umbra. Okay, it will show only umbra. Okay, that's all for today's class, children. Please read this textbook so that you will understand much better, and any doubts will clarify in our interactive session. Thank you.